Okay, I'd like to call to order the Bellefonte Borough Council Work Session. Welcome everybody to the Bellefonte Borough Council Work Session. No council action will be taken or motions or approvals during the work session. Next is the trivia question by Vice President Dan.
Thank you. In case you didn't notice, tomorrow is election day for a president. So I looked through some presidential trivia. So my first, it's kind of a two-parter. My first part is, which state is the birthplace of the highest number of presidents? Virginia. Do you know how many?
3.
Nope. There are 8 from Virginia. Oh, yes, and 4 of them were within the first 5. Yeah. Also, just another quick one. How many presidents were born in Pennsylvania?
My guess is 2.
Is Mr. Johnson looking at his computer and sending you messages?
Who knows what he's doing down there? Well,
It is 2. Can you name them?
James Buchanan,
Very good.
15th president, also the only president that never wed.
Very
So he took
good.
his
Do you know
sister.
what town in Pennsylvania?
Pittsburgh.
Cove Gap. Is that
And
near
then
Pittsburgh?
Joe Biden, Scranton.
Joe Biden's Scranton. Very good. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Barbara. Next item,
You're welcome.
review funds, right? So fire equipment and fire department funds?
I was thinking, but if you want to get down through them, that'd be good.
Okay, so yes, fire equipment, fire department. The first one I'll do is the fire equipment. This fund is used to pay for the loans on the fire apparatus. We pay for a lot of the equipment. The fire departments do fund some of their own stuff, but we levy a tax to pay for the fire equipment as well. So that's exactly what's in here. You're going to see tax revenue and some interest. We do have an agreement with Spring, Benner, and Marion, so they pay a portion of the required expenses. And then you're going to see that basically there's the payment on the fire equipment loans. We paid off 2 loans this year. There is a proposal that the fire department would like to buy a new piece of apparatus. It's a ladder truck, and it's $1.8 million. So Julie is working on a grant up to $1 million to hopefully defer some of that. We'll see. But so for next year, I did not change anything, even though we paid off 2 loans. I kept everything the same so we could put some money into capital projects to help pay for that, because if we don't get the grant, we're looking about $150,000 to $165,000 a year in payments between us and the fire and the townships. So just to give you a heads up, it takes, when we order the truck, it takes about 3 years to get it. If we fund the truck from the get-go, we save between $350,000 and $400,000. But that means we have to start paying for the truck when we order it. So they're still in the process of talking about it. We cannot order the truck until we find out if we get the grant. That's one of the stipulations of the grant. So just to give you a heads up, stay tuned. So this one has no changes.
Curiosity question. You said that we can't actually order the truck until the grant comes through.
If we get it, yes.
Okay,
to find
and
out.
when you say grant comes through, is that just being an announcement or signing the contract for the grant?
I mean, you don't actually have the grant till a contract is signed. That's how it is.
Okay, so it could be another year and a half before we get it.
It shouldn't be more than a year at the most.
Okay, thank
But-
you.
Any other questions? Okay, the other part of the fire department is the operating account, which is just the Bellefonte Fire Company. So then this one, we again levy a tax. We again share the expenses with Spring, Benner, and Marion. And then this is the portion where we pay for the fire chief gets a stipend. One of their biggest expenses is maintenance on the equipment. We pay for cell phones, for iPads, for workers' comp, commercial insurance, those kind of things. So for next year, in order to keep up with everything, both of these have gone through to the fire exec committee. They have seen them. So far, they haven't made any major changes. To keep up to where we need to be, we need a 0.12 tax increase. Is there any questions?
That would be just the operating fund?
Just the operating fund needs an increase. The other one stays the same.
Lori, I do have a question on this related to this.
Okay.
At one point, I had read somewhere that people's home insurance could be billed for fire services. I don't know any details on it. I don't even know if that's true. Is there coverage for that? Do you know anything, or anybody know anything about that?
All I know is earlier in the year, we passed some ordinance or resolution allowing the fire companies to invoice insurance companies, at least for vehicle accidents. But I don't know about homeowners or fires at homes.
I don't know that we can, I know about invoicing for a fire, but I do know, like Ralph said. that
Okay,
we
so maybe
can
that's where I
invoice-
heard that then before.
But I think the fire company does that, and if they do it, they keep the money.
Okay.
So they were looking at having like a third party do the billing. So, but they
okay.
would keep the
So
money.
I remember a couple of years ago, and this may fit into what you're thinking about, Barb, was that we went through something where there was a fire insurance review, and it looked at the quality of our fire department services. And as a result of that, we got a better rate for services, but it wasn't actually charging the homeowners.
Okay.
Yeah, that's similar to what we're talking about. That's just a rating that the fire department has, which I guess potentially gives homeowners a little bit of a discount on their insurance policies.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a
okay.
little bit different.
It's called an ISO. They talk about that. When they say they want a new ladder truck, having the ladder truck actually keeps the insurance rates lower for the people in the borough because they have that piece of apparatus. So it does affect your homeowner's insurance based on what the equipment they have. I think if they have hydrants and that kind of stuff. So yes, there is that.
I think the other thing to understand is they're buying one unit and selling two. So they're dropping two off and picking a new one up.
But I do think they purchased those, so that money will probably go back to the fire department.
Right.
Anything else?
I was asked to sort of do an overview of the fire department. Lori, has helped with the finances for years and is very much up to date on the finance part. Randy has been on the executive committee for years, so they're in-house experts. So I'm going to give a quick overview, but they may very well chime in and probably be beneficial if they did. But let me walk down through this. This is on the screen behind some of you. Sorry about that, but Bellefonte actually has a fire department, just like a streets department, a police department, and so on. All that has started with the Borough Council adopting an ordinance. It's now called Chapter 35. It was called something else years ago. I have a copy of that at everybody's seat tonight for you to take a look at. But years ago, Bellefonte created this ordinance, and the ordinance lays out everything, including, what the Fire Executive Committee does. All the details about the department are in that ordinance. The department, as Lori said, the department owns equipment and has some operating expenses. The department has no employees. It only uses volunteers from 2 fire companies, the Logans and the Undine. So department is the overall organization. Underneath that is 2 volunteer fire companies. So this department is pretty much managed, once the ordinance is established, and this is the way it's been for years, the department is managed by the Bellefonte Fire Department Executive Committee. And that was, again, established years ago. Up around 2009 or 10, I think it was, they expanded the committee and added the seats for the townships that were in the financial agreement. The funding formula Lori mentioned, it's also at the table tonight as a copy of that financial agreement. This Chapter 35 has been amended in 2019. It was, I think, a pretty large amendment. And then just earlier this year, there was some small amendments made that we adopted in February. Currently, the department has co-chiefs. We have Bobby Salvanish from the Logans, who is the chief of the Logan Fire Company. And we have Gary Lohr as the other co-chief. He is currently the chief of the Undine Fire Company. I mentioned Randy as a council member, sits on the committee. Lori does all the financing work for the committee and the department. Lori mentioned the 2 funds. There's the fire equipment fund, again, just only does the trucks and the apparatus. The department does all the operating expenses. I have a note here. The 2 fire company buildings, like from the Undines and the Logans, are owned by them, not the borough. This is out of our tax ordinance. Lori mentioned the mill rate. Just for reference, the department tax, which is the operating fund, is currently at 0.8 mils. She mentioned that they're looking at a 0.12 increase. That would, if I'm thinking correctly, that's a little bit over $1,000. Does that sound right? 10? Okay, you're right. Yes, about 10, because 0.8 would be 80,000, so yes. The fire equipment is about at 0.36 now, which is about 36,000 roughly in revenue for the equipment fund. Lori mentioned the funding of the funding formula. Why is that? Why is that set up like that, you might ask? Bellefonte Fire Department is the first responder for designated areas of Banner, Marion, and Spring. And because of that, there's funding that the townships rightfully pay to the department for that first response mechanism. So in 2010, that funding formula agreement was solidified through an agreement. And again, that's here at the table this evening for you to take a look at. About the same time, we added the 3 seats to the executive committee. You may remember back in September, we mentioned that the SAFER grant, was the federal grant, had ended and all the paperwork was submitted. That was a $500,000 multi-year grant for recruiting and retaining volunteer firefighters. So that's definitely a very positive event for the fire department in recent times. We wanted to mention that. The only thing I wanted to add, or one thing I wanted to add, the borough code, this is what's out of the borough code as far as the borough council's responsibility for firefighting or providing that service. It says to ensure that the fire and emergency medical services are provided within the borough by the means and to the extent determined by the borough, including the appropriate financial and administrative assistance for these services. There's a lot of interpretation in that. There's some court cases, but basically boroughs and townships are responsible for providing the fire service in some way, in some means, for the residents of each municipality. It's not the county, it's the municipalities that are responsible. And I'm happy to answer questions. Again, Lori and Randy can chime in as well.
Have one. With the SAFER grant, do we have any numbers on how successful that was?
I glanced at them today. I don't have them in front of me. In that report that was in September, they did have an increase in volunteers, but it wasn't like hundreds. It was probably less than 100 per department, but they did have an increase.
Well, that's pretty good. Okay. Oh, good. So it worked out. I think that was a great grant to do that.
I think, I'll just give you this kind of information is read it. Because if you don't read it, you're not going to know what's in it. You're going to get lost in it. So it's not a hard read, but I think it's worth doing, especially if we have to approve things for the fire department. So we have a little bit more knowledge of how we're doing that. The other thing to remember is currently we do not have a fire chief. We have 2 station chiefs, and they work together. But that's getting old. We're not quite sure where we're going to head. We may just end it up in putting an administrative person in there and see where we get from there until we get somebody that has passed all the exams and can get in there to be our chief. Those are 2 big areas right there. Well, I know Logan's and Undine's vote on other new people coming in for their leadership. Is that the Undines that go in November? And then I think at Logan's is December, maybe? Yeah. Okay. Maybe the Undines have already done theirs, and now they're going to be able to put that person in place in November at their meeting, whenever they have their meetings. That's all I have.
Other questions?
Just one more thing, Ken, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I have talked to Ralph about getting with the other municipalities, Spring Township, Benner Township, sitting down with them sometime maybe in January to get things started and possibly redo this agreement for the fire protection services. Because the 3% that we get each year, that we give them each year, to me, the 3% kind of goes down a little bit because we're just not getting any extras out of that. And so that's something we need to look at as to what we can do to get more money in there for the fire department apparatus or the volunteers themselves.
All right, if there's nothing else, we'll move on to the next item on the work session. Strategic Management Plan Review, Consideration and Budgeting for Expenses for the 2025 Initiatives.
My first question is, how do you want to do this? Because I have two different ideas on two wildly different issues.
Does anybody else have anything? Otherwise, just go ahead with your two ideas, Joanne.
Okay. The first, I looked through this big thing. And I came across a section in there talking about looking for new streams of revenue. And one of them that was listed on page 69, it's not a whole lot of money, but it was a discussion about franchise fees for streaming services. Currently, the only franchise fee we have is for cable TV. In the text is indicated that in 2020, Georgia, Texas, and Indiana had filed lawsuits to enable municipalities to charge franchise fees for streaming services, basically on an equal basis as cable. And I noticed that this report was done 4 years ago. So does anyone know what the outcome of those lawsuits have been? And if they were successful, did the Pennsylvania legislature look into making a change for our law so that we could actually look into doing the franchise fees? And the reason I'm suggesting that we look into this is that when I was on the Cable Franchise Negotiating Committee 8 years ago, the municipalities were told that cable TV is becoming less popular and that over time our franchise fees from cable TV services are going down. And if that's where people are going to, it would look like it would be advocating to look into what's happening there so that we don't lose that funding stream.
I have not heard of anything, and I'm happy to check with the Boroughs Association. I think we would have got notification if we had that ability, but nevertheless, I can check with them and see what the status is.
The other one is looking back at the public transit issues. I looked at the goals we have under the stamp, and there are two goals that trying to fix our public transit system fits into. The first is Goal 1, where we create incentives and provide opportunities to expand economic development. Specifically, the Action 1A, which is create incentives and provide opportunities to expand the economic development. And the second one was to help make Goal 4, which is to help the borough become more resilient. And Action 4F was encouraging use of public transit. And why I believe that the public transit issues that we're looking into would fit these two goals. Bellefonte does have a wonderful, small, vibrant downtown area, but essential services are not easily accessible within our region without public transit for those who need it. This is true particularly for grocery stores and access for public health services. Public transit is critical for many of our residents and businesses and local governments to create and sustain an equitable, economically viable community. So I'm just looking as an ask in our budget based on that. In the general budget, under other expenses on page 41 of the stamp, We have funding for CATA. I would like to see that we at least maintain what is in the current budget, or preferably increase public transit funding from the current $35,000 to $70,000. It is less than a 1% increase in our entire general budget. The public transit, what we're looking at with the Public Transit Task Force, we're looking for additional funding outside of the borough budget to help us meet the needs of our community, for the people who don't have personal transportation. We are reaching out to potential businesses that also have a vested interest in public transit in addition to other governmental funding. We haven't found it yet, but that's what we're looking for. No, we have but by increasing the amount that we put into public transit, we can show other entities that we are supportive of meeting our transit and needs and our strategic goals. If we're unable to get additional funding by next July, this additional funding could help us tweak the Beeline service to better serve our residents and businesses.
Lori, do we get monies from franchise fees? Do you see that in our budget? And if so, how much? Is it a significant amount?
Yeah, we did get, it's in general.
Is it?
It is going down.
Yeah. I mean, that is an interesting point. Less people are probably paying for cable because it's not going down. But, yeah, I'm just curious how much of that is from cable, and if less people are buying it, we're certainly seeing less. Yeah, okay.
Joanne, I don't hear you saying much about the county transportation services in your endeavor in finding public transportation to Center County. I believe, from what I understand, they have been taking up the slack.
They have been taking up some
but
of
I
the
haven't
slack.
heard you mention them at all.
They've been taking up some of the slack. The way that service works is you have to sign up for it, just like you do for CATA now.
Yeah.
But if you are a senior citizen, services are free to you. If you have a disability, they have a reduced fee. However, for the working public, it starts at $19.95 for the first 5 miles and goes up to $70 one way. It's just impossible for people to use that service at that kind of cost.
So why not try working with them to reduce that service fee?
We are talking to them. That discussion hasn't yet come up. Do you have anything else to say?
I'm just curious,
Yeah.
I think that would be the logical place to start if you're going to use some money for transportation services. How can we share that expense with the county and the transportation services? Have you made that contact yet?
We are in contact with Dave Lawmason. He's up to date with what we're doing. The difference with the county is that they are serving an area the size of Rhode Island. The county service serves the entire county.
That's correct.
Center County. And because it is taxpayer-based, asking the residents of other municipalities in the far reaches of the county to fund our local transportation is not really reasonable. So we're trying to find something closer to home to supplement what we're doing, but we are researching other funding sources to supplement
but the
impact of municipalities.
You have State College Borough, Spring Township, Benner, Walker, Harris. All of those places are served by CATA as well.
Yes, they are, but we're still dealing with the dynamic of the member municipalities and the contracted municipalities.
Okay, well, I'm just suggesting that you might take a closer look at how you can work with the county services and hope that those other townships, boroughs would be willing to participate, even though they may not see the service. And maybe you've already had that discussion. I don't know.
Well, thank you. We'll look into that, but thank you.
Joanne, have you had any meetings with CATA since it was started?
Many.
Have they changed their voice as to what, are they still hung up on $223,000?
There's been no update on
Okay,
that because we're not in that part of the cycle yet. Right now, we're working with them to make tweaks to the existing B line to make it more, if they can, efficient, and then get a proposal from them to keep it in the same sequence that we've done in the past, with CATA coming to council in the spring with a proposal, and then let council look at it from there. But we have to figure out, first of all, how to tweak the B line and look for other funding sources to move forward.
Well, the only reason we had to do that is because we can't afford the $223,000.
Well, we're trying to keep it below that, well below that.
But they've already met with us, and every time they met with us, nothing changed. And
Well-
that seems to me to be a roadblock or a brick wall.
The
And they
best.
won't change it.
Yeah, the best we can say at this point, there has been statements, and it's conflicting statements, which is why we're not really sure what's happening. But there has been some statements that we could possibly petition the board to become a member community, and then they couldn't charge us more than 15%, where now there's 30%, what that 200 and some is. But then we've had other ones that say that's not even a possibility. So we're not absolutely sure what's happening there. We definitely agree that 220,000 is out of range, unless we were able to come up with a whole bunch of businesses and services that could help fill the gap. So we're still working on it. And we also have a nonprofit that is assisting us for free to provide some project and planning programming. So we're still finishing up the paperwork to submit to them, and hopefully they'll give us some additional ideas after that.
So it could be that you could get vouchers for these folks who don't qualify for the reduced cost. It sounds like that would be a quicker and faster way to, what percentage of folks can't use the service because it's so expensive? Do you have any idea of that?
We have absolutely no idea. The only information we have from the county is that since July 1st, for the Benner Spring Bellefonte service area, demand for the county service has gone up 40% in that area, but it is primarily riders over the age of 60, and so far the county has been able to absorb that increase. We have no idea or way to find out what percentage of the population under the age of 60 is using the service or has been disenfranchised by lack of service.
So we budgeted, what, for our CATA services,
I think it's about
30,000 or
30.
25,000? What was it? So if we took that 25 and offered some supplement to the folks who don't qualify for the county service, that seems like a pretty quick way of satisfying. So giving vouchers for those who qualify, who don't qualify, and then we would get some sort of numbers of how many people are using the service that wouldn't qualify for the supplement.
Okay, but are you looking at just Bellefonte residents?
Yeah.
Because the service is used by people from all over the center region coming to and going, it's back and forth. So there are residents in other parts, in other municipalities who need to get to
Maybe they could have vouchers as well,
Bellefonte.
if they're really serious about helping their folks. I think it's a step in the direction.
It's a good idea, thank you.
Other comments or topics for discussion? Barbara?
I do, Kent. This is a huge report with tons of valuable information in it. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm pretty overwhelmed by the whole thing, and I think if we broke this down into different sections to talk about, because so much of this, we don't know under the recommendations, or at least I don't, if things have been done or not. And I think that would be very helpful going forward on this. I know it'll take some time. This had to have been a huge effort. This was before I was on council. And it just seems very comprehensive, but it was done in 2021, so we have almost 4 years have passed since then. I don't know how to facilitate that necessarily, but I think that with all this great information, we should be looking at it in a little more detail and maybe different segments with that.
To follow up with Barb, I had a similar thought, because this is like 4 years old. And I think, could we have a couple of work sessions that go through the goals and say, and look, because it said that these are high priority, these are medium, these are low. And look and say, and in some of those sections it says we've already completed. I'd like to see the updates to what we've already completed. And if not completed, where we're at on each of those. That I think would be very, very helpful.
Thank you, Joanne. I agree with that. Like I said, there were just so many recommendations through this that so many of them seem like great ideas. I'm just looking at one now, which was the LERTA program, which was started, and I think that's worked very, very well. But I don't know, there's a lot we have not covered or talked about. So I, for one, would like to look at this in much more detail and use the information we have. I'm sure this was not free. So I think we should, yeah, it is, and it's very valuable, and maybe some of it doesn't apply now, but that's what I would like to see.
Thank you, Barbara. Other comments for discussion? Ms.
Well, I'm just asking, was there anything specific that you wanted us to look at or you had in mind?
Well, it's budget season, so I'm looking at expenses. Anything that we would spend money for in '25 would be a priority, knowing that now, to put it in whatever budget, probably the general fund, but that's what I'm really interested in.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There's the monies already set aside for the renovations to the police department?
We have the money for the renovations of the police department, yes.
Okay.
So with what we're talking about right now with the CATF stuff, what else you guys looked at? Because I thought there were 5 items that we were supposed to choose and work with.
5 items?
Mm-hmm. I thought we've made a list.
Oh.
At the last meeting, we gave you a list of maybe 5 or 6 different things we wanted to look at. Do you have them on hand?
I don't have those on. I was focused on this.
I
Sorry about that.
think I'm agreeing with Randy here.
Yeah.
Those are things that we need to kind of pull into the STAMP program, because I think they are all very good items to consider, and that they could show how they fit in with this program and moving us
I
ahead.
can go back and get all those, and I have those, but yeah, I'll
But
take that.
off the top of my head, I don't
Yes.
remember.
Couldn't even find my notes.
Any other items for discussion generally? Doesn't have to necessarily be that. I think once we get through the budget season, it'll be a little bit easier to think about things like that, I'm assuming. We'll see. Anything else? We have time. All right, if we have nothing else, I'm going to adjourn the work session for now. The business meeting will be followed. I'd like to call to order the Bellefonte Borough Council Business Meeting for Monday, November 4th. Start out, please, with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next, we will have roll call.
Mr. Benier,
I'm here.
Mr. Brackbill.
Here.
Ms. Cleaton,
Here.
Ms. Dan,
Here.
Mr. Johnson, Ms. McKean is excused, Ms. Purnell,
Here.
Ms. Sedgwick,
Here.
Ms. Tosti Vasey, Mr. Larson,
Here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Next is the additions to Bellefonte Borough Council meeting agenda. Do I have any council members that would like to make an addition to the agenda? If not, we'll move on. Public comment. Do I have anybody from the public that would like to speak on any item on the agenda? Next is communications, written. The first one is the pension distress determination score, a positive score for the particular pension program. No council action is required. Next is the Mount Nittany Health Community Needs Assessment Invitation for community leaders. The elected officials who are interested can register to attend and/or complete the survey online. No council
What-
action is required.
Curiosity question? What about the public? Do you know?
It was geared towards community leaders, so it was not really an open invitation.
Thank you.
PALCB approval letter for amplified noise exemption. Exemption expires at 2 a.m., October 30th, 2029. No council action is requested. Next one is a notice. Bellefonte Borough awarded a $200,000 in grant funds to the compost recycling efforts, additional paving, structures to the cover compost equipment. Thank you to Julie Brooks for preparing and submitting the grant application. Next is the Bellefonte EMS notice of new Act 141, to help with millage rate cap. No council action is requested. That's it for communications. Have any questions relative to those? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. All items in the consent agenda are considered routine and will be acted upon by one single motion. I call for a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? If not, we'll move on to reports.
No, you have to have a vote.
Oh, let's vote. By all means, let's vote. We don't want to have to bring this up again next meeting.
Council member Dan has offered to help me with the voting, so here we go.
Oh, I get to read the names too. How about that? Mr. Bernier.
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill.
Yes.
Ms. Cleaton.
Yes.
Ms. Dan, yes. Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Ms. McKean is absent. Ms. Purnell.
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick.
Yes.
Ms. Tosti Vasey.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Next is reports. The first one is from our mayor, and he has a proclamation.
Yes, I have a proclamation for Reefs Across America Day, and I believe we have somebody. Would you like to join me?
Becky Thomas.
So we have Becky Thomas with us for this proclamation. Whereas in 1992, Morrow, Worcester began the tradition of laying wreaths at Arlington National Cemetery each holiday season to honor servicemen and women in each branch of the military, including those still missing in action and prisoners of war. And whereas in 2007, the Worcester family, along with veterans, other service groups, and individuals continued and expanded their annual wreath-laying ceremony in Arlington and formed the nonprofit Wreaths Across America. And whereas on December 13th, 2008, the United States Congress unanimously voted and declared National Wreaths Across America Day to be celebrated annually. And whereas the mission of Wreaths Across America is to remember the fallen, honor those who served, and teach the next generation about the value of freedom. And whereas the Bellefonte chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution will gather on Saturday, December 14th, 2024, to place wreaths on the graves of veterans buried in Union Cemetery in Bellefonte, marking their third year participating in Wreaths Across America. Now, therefore, I, Buddy Johnson, Mayor of the Borough of Bellefonte, Center County, do hereby proclaim December 14th, 2024 as Wreaths Across America Day here in Bellefonte and commend its observance to all citizens. I do hereby set my hand to seal 4th day of November 2024. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Becky Thomas, and I am a member of the Bellefonte chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution. And one of the mission goals of the Daughters is to remember our veterans. And a few years ago, we got started at Union Cemetery here in Bellefonte. I am the location coordinator, which means that I go around and do all kinds of things, and I get people organized and whatnot. But if you're not familiar with the Wreaths Across America, it has become quite the project. There were over 3 million wreaths placed last year in 2023, and that includes, there are all of the states in the United States are represented. They also do wreaths at cemeteries in Europe as well as at sea for those who passed at sea. It has, as I said, it's become quite a big event. Just to give you an idea, at Arlington Cemetery, there are 68 tractor trailers that bring wreaths in, and over 20,000 volunteers just on that day. Last year we had about 85 volunteers at Union Cemetery, and we had about 120 wreaths that we placed. And so I brought some things for you, some pins and a little QR code. Anyone who would like to sponsor a wreath for Wreaths Across America can do so. To sponsor the wreaths, it's $17 each. And you can go on to the website, and this little card that I'll give you will put you right at the Bellefonte chapter site, and you can go ahead and go on to that site and make your sponsorship of a wreath. And you can also indicate if you would like it done in the memory of someone or in honor of someone. And so my family has just really been involved with the veterans, and I'm just so glad that we are able to participate in this. And the last thing I want to say is, if anybody wants to come and help, you are more than welcome to come out on Saturday, December 14th at Union Cemetery. And I would encourage you to dress for the weather, because you never know. But we will begin at noon at the flagpole at the cemetery, where we will have a very short little ceremony where we will be placing special wreaths for all of the branch services, as well as the MIAs and the POWs. And then we will talk about, I'll give you some instructions, and then people can just take some wreaths and go out any place in the cemetery to place them on the graves. We do not decorate, we place them on the graves. And thank you so much for coming, for letting me come, and thank you so much for the proclamation. And like I said, I have some little things for you, so I'll pass those around. Yes?
So thank you for coming. You're welcome to come back anytime you'd like. Did you say a number of wreaths that you placed last year in Bellefonte? If I did, I didn't hear you correctly.
Yeah, I think at Union Cemetery, if I remember correctly, I think we placed 125 wreaths.
So that's just at the Union Cemetery?
Just
Okay.
at Union Cemetery. Union Cemetery is the only participating cemetery in all of Center County.
Okay.
So,
There's got to be more veterans. Okay,
oh, there's 930 veterans
yeah.
buried.
But that's the
At
only
that
cemetery that participates in the Wreaths Across America.
Right,
Okay.
right.
I'm glad I
And the
asked.
wreaths must come through Wreaths Across America.
Right.
They, you can't just go
Right.
to Target or someplace and put a wreath, because they are live wreaths, and they have to come from Wreaths Across America.
Maybe we can put that QR code up on our website so people can sponsor wreaths
Yes.
for you
that-
to try to
yeah,
get them all.
Yeah.
Of the 125 wreaths that you placed last year, how many were sponsored by folks that weren't there helping? So
Oh.
just like say, no idea?
It's hard for me to tell,
Yeah.
because there were, there were so many. My brother lives in South Carolina, and he sponsored wreaths for Union Cemetery, and other family members and people from out of town. We don't do grave-specific requests, because that just makes it really difficult. And so if you sponsor a wreath, it goes to Union Cemetery, and you know that it will be placed on a grave at Union Cemetery. And Union Cemetery is one of the few cemeteries in the country that has a designated spot for burials for those men who were in the colored troops during the war. So we try and make sure that we get wreaths down in that lower area. And
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I just want to thank Chief Whitmer and his wife Erin and my wife. We went out on Halloween and it was successful once again. We went to 2 different spots, ran into Barbie and Ken somewhere, right? He's playing like he wasn't Ken.
Ralph, who's he talking to?
Yeah. No, but it was a really nice event, and I want to thank Giant Food Stores once again for their generous donation and making Halloween special for our community and for all the families in our community. So, thank you.
You're welcome. Junior Counsel, Mr. Larson.
Yeah, so my report this month is a little short because this is when the year starts to settle out and get a little boring, but it's all right. The holiday season's coming up, so it should be fun again. So this last month was National Principals Month. We just had a quick PR thing sent out to us, so I thought I'd mention it. Last week, a small group of seniors visited U.S. Representative Glenn Thompson in a government outreach program, and from what I heard, it was a pretty good thing. People really liked it. They liked the fact that you could talk to somebody in our government and hear what they thought directly. So that small group of students really liked that. From October 14th to October 18th was Bullying Prevention Week. We had a whole Spirit Day thing set up. It was a lot of fun. I also wanted to mention that 40-plus kids are going to be working the polls tomorrow for voting day. I don't think anybody's assigned to Bellefonte, but throughout Center County, we're assigned to different precincts, so that should be fun. And then for extracurriculars, the boys soccer team won their District 6 championship, and the football team's first postseason competition was on Friday, and they won, so go Bellefonte. Don't ask me any more about that because I don't really know. And then that's about it. We went on a few field trips in the last month, so that's my entire report.
That was excellent.
Could I ask you something?
Yeah.
First of all, I want to say great report, and that I really like the idea that some of the students are reaching out to other elected officials.
Mm-hmm.
You said you weren't at that meeting, is that correct?
No, I was not.
Do you have any idea what kind of things they discussed with the legislator? The reason I'm asking is because it would be helpful for us to know what the youth are interested in with other elected officials.
So if that's what you're after, I can definitely ask around and see what some people my age think and want to know from elected officials. I don't know exactly what was talked about at that meeting. I just got input that they really liked being able to talk to somebody in a position that can have power. So I could definitely ask if you want me to and find out some more information.
That would be great, because I think that would even help us to know what you all are interested in.
Okay. I can definitely get on that for next month. Anything else?
I don't think so. Thank you. The last report there was submitted to you by Mrs. Thompson. It was just an OCA memo. That's it for reports.
Real
unless you have a
quick.
question.
I read the report, and Gina asked me to make a correction. The proposed public meeting is Tuesday, November 19th, not Tuesday, the 18th.
Okay. Next is current and old business. At our last meeting on October 21st, we held an executive session and discussed personnel matters. Next item is the committee appointed to negotiate a new collective bargaining agreement with AFSCME has reached a tentative agreement. After the tentative agreement has been put in writing and received, it will be placed on the council agenda for consideration. Next is a non-uniform pension ordinance amendment related to the defined contribution cash balance plan. This ordinance and amendment has been recommended by the plan auditor. Council may take action. I'm asking for a motion and a second to approve the non-uniform pension ordinance amendment as presented by the plan auditor.
So moved.
Second, Rackville.
Thank you. Discussions or questions?
Whoops. Yes.
Take it easy.
Has the union been notified of this amendment? I know it's not going to affect our current contract, and I'm assuming it's within guidelines of our proposed collective bargaining agreement. If so, I have no problem voting for it.
The actual work or the change was done probably 3 or 4 years ago, a previous contract. If you recall, we changed the borough's contribution from 5% to 10%. So that was the work that was done at the council level, but by motion. But what we needed to approve an ordinance according to the auditor. So that's.
So this is just paperwork to
Yes.
match everything?
Yes.
That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Other questions before we vote? Who's doing the roll call vote?
I am.
Okay.
Mr. Bernier,
Yes.
Mr. Brackville,
Yes.
Ms. Clayton,
Yes.
Ms. Dan, yes. Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Ms. McKean, Ms. Purnell,
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick,
Yes.
Ms. Toasty Vasey.
Yes.
Is that everybody? Okay. All right, motion passes. Next is lease agreement with the Bald Eagle Area School District relative to Governor's Park Ball Field. Consider asking a Bellefonte Borough solicitor for an opinion and options.
So moved.
I'm asking for a motion and a second to go to the
I'll second Brackville.
questions or concerns or discussion. Going to ask for a legal opinion on the lease agreement between Bellefonte Area School District and the borough. Okay.
Can I ask what part of that, or why we're taking it to the attorney?
I presented the lease agreement as, I guess, a document for one of our work sessions, and I've been asked informally about what our options are for, was the school district required or mandated to make improvements to the old field, or maybe even the new field. And I have my unofficial opinion, but I think the best way to handle it is have council decide whether a legal opinion should be sought after or not.
Thank you.
Because in the lease agreement, you highlighted that they don't have the requirement to pay for upgrades or improvements to the field. Isn't that correct?
I'm not an attorney.
Right. That's why we're asking for a legal opinion. Okay.
Yes, that's my unofficial
That's the crux of it.
opinion, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I have a comment. The other question I had, we have a term of 15 years, and it's my thought that the field will wear out before 15 years and need replacement. And at this time, we're not getting any contribution through the school district in a 15-year lease, meaning that the borough is responsible for all repairs in this lease. So I'm hoping that there's some relief and get a legal opinion of this lease to see if we can renegotiate the 15-year term so that there could be contributions from the school district. That's why I thought it should be reconsidered.
Other comments or questions?
I do. Thank you, Doug. I agree with you on that. Also, because this has really changed since we did this lease, because we got this wonderful grant, redid the field, so it's a very different place now than it was when we did this particular agreement. So I'm looking forward to hearing what the attorney has to say.
Okay, anything else? Okay, we'll go to a vote then.
Mr. Bernier.
Yes.
Mr. Brackville.
Yes.
Ms. Clayton.
Yes.
Ms. Dan, yes. Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Ms. McKean. Ms. Purnell.
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick.
Yes.
Ms. Toasty Vasey.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next is yard waste collection. No yard waste collection will occur during the week of November 11th due to Veterans Day holiday. Last day for the season for the yard waste collection is November 20th. Again, last day for yard waste collection is November 20th. There'll be no collection the week of Veterans Day, which is November 11th. Curbside leaf collection is underway. Collection day is generally the same day as your refuse pickup. Leaves can also be taken to the Musser Lane compost facility, Monday through Thursday, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., Friday, 5 to 1. Saturdays, 8 to 11:45 until November 23rd. The facility is closed on holidays.
I have a question. And this is something that I noticed today. So I was wondering, could we have a reminder about the leaf collection put on our website to request that leaves not be raked into the road and instead be placed in the right-of-way next to the road so that we don't have the leaves clogging up our storm drains when it rains?
Yes, we can do that. Thank you.
Next is appointments to the authorities, boards, and commissions. They expire at the end of 2024. Staff will be contacting volunteers about their interest in being reappointed. A list of new terms for ABCs will be placed on the borough website. Appointments are expected to be made at the first meeting in January. Last current and old business is a reminder. The large wooden cherry desks are on Municipid to be sold. Online bidding will end on November 18th. So bid on your desks. Next is new business. First thing is volunteer painting of the pavilions and brush cutting at Governor's Park. The U.S. Air Force 193rd SOW Leadership Development Program Group volunteered to do this work. They are a military group that empowers individuals to enhance their leadership skills through hands-on activities, mentorship, and collaborative learning. They focus on fostering self-awareness, strategic thinking, and effective communications to build confident, capable leaders ready to inspire and to drive positive change. They painted woodwork on the pavilion, on Pavilion 12, and several others, as well as cleared brush. They were very organized and professional. They look forward to volunteering opportunities in the spring and fall, and the borough staff would love to have them back anytime. I need a motion and a second to send a thank you letter to the group.
So moved.
Second.
Questions about this? Okay, vote.
Mr. Bernier.
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill.
Yes.
Ms. Cleaton.
Yes.
Ms. Dan, yes. Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Ms. Purnell.
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick.
Yes.
Ms. Toasty Vasey.
Yes.
Okay, next is 4 AED units have been installed in the building at 301 North Spring Street, one on each floor and one in the council chambers, large meeting room, right over there by the door. A demonstration on how to use the AED will be scheduled for an upcoming work session. Very nice. Name of the small conference room, first floor, 301 North Spring Street. When the building was owned by the Trinity Investments, the small conference room was called the Oak Room. Need a motion and a second to refer to the small conference room as the Oak Room.
So moved, Brockman.
Second, Tosti Vase.
Questions or discussion on the naming of the Oak Room, which apparently was always named the Oak Room, but we're going to just name it the Oak Room. No questions, Joanne? Okay. We're going to name it the Oak Room. Let's vote.
Mr. Bernier.
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill.
Yes.
Ms. Cleaton.
Yes.
Ms. Dan, yes. Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Ms. McKean, Ms. Purnell.
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick.
Yes.
Ms. Toasty Vasey.
Yes.
And so it is. Yep. Next is the Bellefonte Borough Open House. An open house at this building, 301 North Spring Street, is being planned for Thursday, December 5th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. This is an open invitation to the community to come out and tour the building, meet borough elected officials and staff. Food donations for this event will be pursued. Again, that's going to be an open house here at this building on Thursday, December 5th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Next is a work session with community economic development organizations. Staff will be inviting representatives from the Bellefonte Chamber, Downtown Bellefonte and the Historic Bellefonte Corporation to work sessions tentatively in January to give a state of the affairs update. Very good.
Could BHCA be added to that list?
Sure.
The last item on our agenda is the public comment regarding issues that are not on the agenda. Have anybody out there that would like to comment on something that we didn't talk about tonight? No? Okay. Bellefonte Borough Business Meeting is adjourned. That's it.